Ramsay leaned across the bed and pulled open the curtains. The early sunlight made the trees on the other side of the Dean seem very close, and he could hear wood-pigeons through the open window. "I'm at home," he said mildly. "Not at work. They hadn't done when I left last night."
"This is serious," she said. "She wouldn't just wander off, not Mrs. Cassidy."
"I know," he said. "We're taking it seriously." He'd learned that it did no good to lose his temper with her. Her persistence was unaffected by anger. If he answered her questions, she would eventually leave him alone.
"Well," she said, "I hope you are. Everyone here's very upset."
She had her own flat in a sheltered accommodation scheme run by a local housing association. The move from the old coal-board cottage had given her a new lease of life. She was into everything there, knew everyone's business. The other elderly residents held her in regard because she claimed a direct line to the police. They felt it gave the building special protection. She encouraged them in that belief, and he'd often been phoned at unwelcome times about missing pension books and the horror of dogs fouling the communal garden. He visited her once a week to have tea in the little overheated living room, and quite often there would be a queue of residents waiting in the corridor to consult him as if he were the chiropodist. She would show them in one at a time, and he would do his best to answer their questions and satisfy their demands. Hunter, his sergeant, would mock the weekly visit to the old people's flats, but Annie had always been Ramsay's favourite aunt, and, despite the demands she made on him, he still felt a responsibility and an exasperated affection for her. When Stephen was a child, Annie had seemed less worn out, less worn down than the other women he knew, perhaps because she had no children of her own. There had also been something theatrical about her. His mother had disapproved of her and said she showed off, but Annie had been the provider of treats. The best seats at the Panto at Christmas, picnics in the dunes at Druridge Bay, and while other adults' attempts to please often left him with a sense of anti-climax, her treats were as magnificent in reality as they had been in expectation. It was Annie Ramsay who'd phoned him the evening before about the disappearance of Dorothea Cassidy.
"She was supposed to be speaking at our social club half an hour ago," she had said, as if it were his fault. "But she's not turned up."
Give her a chance," he had said. "Perhaps she's ill, or her car's broken down, or got held up in the carnival traffic. You know what the roads are like this week. Perhaps she's just forgotten."
"Aye," Annie said. "Maybe. She's a bit of a reputation as a scatterbrain."
And Ramsay thought that with that observation he would be left in peace. But 3/4 of an hour later, Annie was on the phone again.
"She's still not here," she said. "I've just been in touch with her husband. He's not seen her since this morning, and if her car had broken down she would have rung. She had this talk in her diary. I watched her write it down myself. You'll have to do something."
So Ramsay had done something. It hadn't been easy to persuade his colleagues in Otterbridge police station to take her disappearance seriously. There was the fair and the folk festival, and they were all busy, but in the end they had listened. Other women might run off with their fancy men, get legless in Idol's nightclub in Whitley Bay and have to sleep it off on a friend's sofa before they dared go home to their husbands. But this was no ordinary woman. Dorothea Cassidy was a vicar's wife. Sergeant Gordon Hunter had never found any reason to move out of his mother's house. It was comfortable there, and even when he was younger, he'd felt no need to establish his independence. She had never attempted to cramp his style. If he brought one of his girlfriends back to stay the night, his mother would make breakfast for them both the next day with her usual good humour. Gordon considered such attention his due. He was a single child and had always been spoilt. Besides, since his father had left home to move in with the landlady of one of the roughest pubs in the town centre, his mother had no one else to look after. What else would she do? His father's desertion had bewildered him. The pub was a dirty, run-down place, and when Gordon visited him there, the man seemed exhausted. He helped in the pub after work, carrying crates from the cellar, changing barrels, then sat staring with besotted admiration at the ageing beauty behind the bar. "She's wearing me out, lad," he would say, "and I love it." Now, in the carnival week, the young men who travelled with the fair hung around the pub, and there were reports of fights there every day.
"Serve him right," Gordon's mother said when she heard,
but she did not care enough about her husband to wish him any real harm. She was happy as she was, and all the excitement she needed was provided vicariously by Gordon. Best of all, she liked to sit with her son in the evenings, drinking tea or sweet sherry while he talked about his work.